in Atlanta. Okay. And he joined my Corps Vocati in Atlanta. And then long after that, I asked him to serve as my assistant conductor for that. So we've been together on several opportunities, from my C.S. Lewis Chamber Choir Institute to Corps Vocati. And then he took off to Minneapolis, and he can kind of tell you a bit from there. So Phillip, welcome to our first a cappella Zoom meeting. And I'm just going to let you go and tell us a little bit about your work with Vocal Lessons and what you're doing in Minneapolis.
Yeah, well, thanks. Thanks so much, John. It's really an honor to be with everyone, especially on your first Zoom. I didn't make the connection that this is literally your first Zoom session. So it's even that much more of an honor for me to be with you. And a little side note, John, I wanted to get that recording so you can never deny all the good things that you said about me there. I have it forever. No, seriously, I almost ended up there at LSU. Had it not been for my now nearly 7-year-old son being in my wife's womb, I probably would have been finishing my DMA there with John at LSU and would be one of you all there. We have spent a lot of great time together. For those of you who haven't met Dr. Dixon face to face, just stick with him through this time of doing choir differently, because when you meet him face to face, you'll see he's a very genuine and passionate individual who cares about helping every singer in the choir to find true meaning and joy in the music that you sing, but then the community that you create as well. So we've been hiking together, we've camped, and we've been in England and all over the place. And I just have the utmost respect for him and the work that he does. So I'm just honored to be with you. And before I talk about me, I mentioned this to you, John, I just think it's important that we begin by doing what choirs do. So we're on Zoom, but what I've spent the whole summer doing through the graduate courses that I've taught and webinars that I've led is helping people to see that we can still make music on Zoom, even though it's very different. So before we jump into the stuff about me and what you ask questions about, we're going to do a little bit of stuff like choir would do. So I'm going to invite everybody to stand up where you are. Okay, stand up. It's going to look a little funny for me because my table's a little lower, so you're going to see the lower part of me here. I want everyone to unmute for a second here. This is unconventional, unorthodox, but throughout the whole summer, I've been working with my high school youth, community-based youth choir, which you'll hear about. And we found the best thing to do to get started is just to make noise together, like we're in the room. So everyone just breathe in and sigh 3 or 4 times on your own. Get your voices going. Listen to that rich resonance. That's that Southern Division ACDA resonance there. I love it. All right, now everybody reach up with me. All right, just reach up and stretch. Exhale it out on the S for 4 counts. Inhale back up. Exhale it out on the SH, 4 counts. And now we're going to go up one more time with an inhalation. And out with one more long yawn sigh from top to bottom. Great. Now, the way this is going to work is I'm going to sing a pattern. You're going to all sing it back as an echo. And it's not going to exactly line up. So for those of you who really like things to be precise, it ain't going to happen, but it's going to be okay. And we're going to live. Okay? So sing after me, please. Do, mi, sol.
Do, mi, sol.
Sol, la, sol, la, sol.
Sol, la, sol.
Do, re, mi, re, do.
Do, re, mi, re, do.
Sol, do, sol, do.
Do, do, do.
Fabulous. It's great to hear your voices. I'm going to share my screen with you now. And I'm going to share a little slide here of a canon. This is a very simple canon. If you're a church music person, you know the person William Bradbury. He wrote the hymn Softly and Tenderly, Jesus is Calling, and a lot of other hymns there. So this one is very simple. Just listen to me sing it a couple times, and I'm going to invite you to join in. And because it's a canon, we're just going to kind of roll with it here on Zoom, and it'll line up like a canon would. So, morning is come, night is away. Rise with the sun and welcome the day. Morning is come, night is away. Rise with the sun and welcome the day. So take your hands and your bodies. I saw someone moving there. Let's get a little lilt going here. I'm gonna sing, and when you feel comfortable, just join me. You can join right with me, even though you won't be with me, or you could join at the point at which it would become a canon. Here we go. Morning is come, night is away. Rise with the sun and welcome the day.
Morning is come, night is away. Rise with the sun and welcome the day.
Night is away. Rise with the sun and welcome
Welcome the day.
And sing it one more time. Sustain last note.
Welcome the day.
And finish. Very good. And everyone take that last note. Oh, nice job, Danielle. Finish it off there. You almost got it there. Everyone take that last note, and we're going to make a major chord. Everyone sing day. There's tonic. Day. Choose a note. Right. Someone take the third. Someone take the fifth. There we go. I heard it all there. Bravo, bravo, bravo. Have a seat, everybody. Thank you. Well done. Go ahead and have a seat. You can breathe now. That's the hardest thing about Zoom is you can't see the conductor when there's a screen share, so you don't know when to stop. That's one of the things there. Again, that may have seemed a bit chaotic, but it's so cathartic to hear real voices when we spend all our time on mute and Zoom. And so I'm passionate about embracing it. It's messy, it's weird, it's not what we totally signed up to do, but I'm a believer in the power of positivity and that we make the best of any situation we're in. And we can sing together in Zoom, and we can sing with masks on outside standing 10 feet apart and make some beautiful music happen too. So we'll do a little bit more singing at the end. I suppose I should get to what I was brought here to do. So how many of you had a chance to look at some of the links that were sent out there? Okay, just about everybody. We've got some great questions that we're going to talk about in a little bit here, and after I share with you a little, not really formal presentation, but just talk to you a little bit. I thought what I would do as I share my screen is to tell you a little bit about myself first, and I'm going to let a video kind of do some of it, and then I'll pick up the story from there. And this video is about the youth choir that I started here at Vocal Essence. It's a choir students made up from about 25 different schools in the Twin Cities, and you'll hear some of the reasons that we started it here. So this is just about 2.5 minutes. There's a boy who had his first singing experience at age 3, singing a solo, his church choir. Choir became this consistent aspect of his life through high school, college, finding opportunities to lead ensembles because others saw potential in him. And that young boy is me. We have to invest in our young people when we're talking about transforming a community for longevity's sake. Today, Vocal Essence is embarking upon a new venture in the Twin Cities, bringing a diverse group of young people together to create a choral arts community, one that might transform people's idea of what a choir is capable of being. The pilot year of the youth choir is funded by the Minnesota State Arts Board. It gives us the ability to pay for a 40-week apprenticeship from the artist to the music for weekly rehearsals, followed by a series of performances throughout the spring. I've put together this roster of artists to enhance our experience, including Emmy Award-winning actor T. Michael Rambo and producer, rapper Dessa, along with dancers, choreographers, spoken word artists, and rappers, people who will focus on speech and dramatic production, and then voice coaches, composers as we explore how to create original compositions. This whole team will work together to inform the artistic process.
People from different backgrounds, different cultures, different religions coming together and forgetting about what they are going through or what they have in their life and just forgetting about it and just singing.
There's nothing in Minneapolis, nothing in St. Paul for high school students that look like the community. And our goal is to really reflect the entire community of the Twin Cities.
We sing these songs together. I think it brings us together to form this great unity through our diversity.
This youth choral arts initiative is bigger than just Vocal Lessons. Conversations with Classical Minnesota Public Radio are springing up. Ordway in St. Paul, Orchestra Hall in Minneapolis, these two world-class venues want to be rehearsal partners and performance partners. Augsburg wants to be our primary rehearsal site. So many people are a part of the conversation around this choral arts revolution for young people in our community.
Having something like this is a great opportunity because it helps me grow as a musician. It is overall an amazing experience.
Anyone who believes in the power of music, anyone who loves providing opportunities for young people to be expressive and creative should consider giving to the Youth Choral Arts program so that this can live on. Now, I've seen firsthand how an experience in a choir can transform a group of young people into achieving something that they never thought possible. That's what's at the heart of this. So in my line of work, and it's funny, I grew up in Columbus, Georgia, near Fort Benning. So if anybody has family members or friends that are in Army infantry that were trained at Fort Benning, you know exactly where I'm talking about. My dad owned a clothing store. Ironically, the name of the store was Saul and Harry's. Now, I'm a black man. There's no Saul, there's no Harry in my family. But he bought it from two Jewish brothers and kept the name the same. And so some of my fondest memories are people walking in going, "Can we see the owners?" And he raised his hand. "Are you Saul?" "Nope." "Are you Harry?" "Nope." "I'm George Shoultz." You know, it's my store. And you know, that kind of disconnect. The same thing happens with my last name too, Shoultz. People see Shoultz and they're like, that's not who I expected to see. Yeah, I can turn my volume up a little bit there. How's that? That better? I turned it down during the video there. Sorry about it. So it's interesting growing up, diversity and people looking different has always been a part of my DNA. And I grew up seeing sameness. Some of my best friends were from different backgrounds. Larry Feliciano was my Puerto Rican classmate. We ride bikes together. And then James Smith was a Vietnamese friend of mine, and we would often play with our Power Rangers and stuff like that together. And then I had my Jehovah's Witnesses friends, and I had my black friends from church. And I didn't see color, I didn't see ethnicity growing up. Like, I recognized it was there, but I hung out with you because we got along, and I didn't hang out with you because we had beef. You know, it had nothing to do with where you were from. And so for the majority of my time going through school, high school, middle school, all that stuff, and even in the college, I sought sameness, and I saw the world through the lens of sameness more than difference. And now in my mid 40s, I still seek that sense of being together and commonality, but it's through acknowledging the ways that we have experienced the world differently because of the ways we identify, right? Our cultural, our gender expression identities, our ableness, or the ways that we might be temporarily not able to do certain things. Those things form and shape how we see the world. And so it's really been fun to look back now at how those things shape me, but I really see the world through now. How can we amplify people's individual sense of reality and experience in a way that people are in a shared space to talk about it and share it with each other, to learn from each other, to grow, to understand that we're not always going to agree on things. And that's okay. It's in the discourse, it's in the respect of humankind and the dignity of humankind that we grow and we create this beautiful, beloved community, as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. called it. So I say all of that to say that this really frames the work that I do. And I never in my wildest dreams would believe that I would have to do like a 3-minute video like that to get people to fund programs. Like, I didn't think I was going to end up doing this work. I went to the University of Georgia. I'm a Bulldog, proud Bulldogs. I'm not going to rub it in. But I went there because it was completely paid for. I was going to an Ivy League school. I was the oldest kid of 3, and I thought, my brother and sister won't be able to pay for it. I'll take care of my parents. And so I went to UGA and had a great experience, and it launched me into being where I am now because someone saw in me the ability to conduct. I studied music because it was the thing to do, because it was something I did. But honestly, I was also studying politics and economics, and I was going to be a public servant. And what I've come to find out is that having been a public school teacher, having directed community choirs, church choirs, and now in the work that I'm with Vocal Essence, I am a public servant. It's just in a different way than I expected. So for those of you who are music majors, I want you to think right now, whether you're graduate or undergraduate, this path to studying music is going to open so many possibilities to you. Don't close yourself off. I was a vocal performance person. I won Nats. I won the Southern Regional Nats my junior year. I was on the track to where I could have performed, but that just wasn't where it was at for me. I realized there were so many other possibilities and this music thing that led me to where I am today. So Vocal Essence is the organization that I work with. And as you can see here, I'm not going to read all this to you. It's been around for over 50 years. And our founding director, Phillip is a living legend, and he's still there. So I work with him. You can see we do all of these things here. Like most choir-based organizations, we give concerts, but we also have an array of programs that I manage, learning and engagement programs that are in several different communities and cover several different topics here. You can see Cantaré, which has been around for 13 years, where each year I bring composers from Mexico into Minnesota classrooms to share Mexican culture and life and to learn about Minnesota culture and life, and then they write a song together to be performed. Lullaby Project, we help young women who are facing pregnancy to write a song for their children. The Singers of This Age is the name of the youth choir that I just shared with you, and you'll hear more about them later, and if you watch the videos, you saw them. And Vocal Essence Witness is our flagship. It's now in the 30th year, and it celebrates the contributions of those of the African diaspora, those who look like me, to our shared heritage. So this organization has done this for some 50 years in a variety of different ways. And our whole goal, our whole mission here is that we sing together. So I just want you to see a little bit about our mission and our values. We've sung with everybody from Eric Whitaker. I think I gave you an Eric Whitaker clip there. Sweet Honey in the Rock, Bobby McFerrin. We've commissioned over 300 compositions from all types of composers. The idea is that we sing together, we engage our community, we look at innovative ways of being choir so that we can do these things here in our values. Foster this collaborative environment for music to thrive, where many traditions can be engaged and honored for what they contribute, that we engage people across race, culture, age, and all forms of ways that we identify, and that we ensure and I would say now expand excellence. Because this is our old strategic plan, and we're beginning now to embark upon a new mission of our strategic plan. So I just wanted you to see a little bit about this organization. There aren't many professional choir organizations out there in the world. There's some, I'm in the United States, there are some, a handful at the level of what we're doing, the level of comprehensive. I have a pro choir of 32 singers that I'm the assistant conductor for and the vocal coach for. They're all paid. They have different jobs, music teachers, voice teachers, but they're the pro chorus called the ensemble singers. And then I'm the principal conductor of the Vocal Essence Chorus, which is 120 adult volunteers, many of whom, like you, sang in a wonderful college choir, but they went on to work in another profession and they want to keep singing at a very high level. So I run that group. And then the youth choir, the Singers of This Age. And finally, we have a group called Vintage Voices, which is for older adults as well, in different community centers. And we have a conductor who spends time with them in 12-week sessions, keeping them singing and doing performances. And of course, a lot of this is BC. BC is before COVID, in my mind there. So we still do this work, it just looks different now. A couple of things before I jump into your questions, because your questions are really gonna take us through this conversation here. I wanna share just a little bit here with this PowerPoint. Next one, next slide. The reason we created the Singers of This Age is I wanted to tackle some of the barriers to participate in a choir for people of color. And I see lots of people of color in this room. But you know, and everyone can experience this in your own way, when you choose to do something, there are things that sometimes make you pause and say, do I really want to do it? And so part of my doctoral work at the University of Minnesota, at the end, my final project that I'm still completing here to get my DMA was thinking about what keeps choirs from looking like the communities that they are in. You know, why do choirs look homogenous? There are choirs of Black singers, usually in religious communities. There's choirs, we have lots of people from the Hmong community here. There are people in the Hmong community who make music together, but they usually make music together. And the Karenni community who make music together. And the Mexican Latinx community who make music together. Why don't we see choirs that have this mixture of people? What is it? And so I began to break down some of the barriers. One is cost. Another one is transportation and just that access of being able to get to something, especially with high school kids, right? The big one is representation. People don't see themselves in what we call choir. And that goes hand in hand with repertoire. So my whole mission was, could I create a program that addresses these 4 barriers as kind of the core to create this community that really reflects and represents all of the Twin Cities, and music becoming a vehicle for conversation. And so we've created this framework, and this will get to some of the questions some of you asked earlier. How do we create community in this particular youth choir, but in all the choirs that I work with? And this is my philosophy, that by singing together, we explore our personal artistry, right? If we give people a chance to explore what they can do, what they like to do, then we get a chance to have an insight with conversation. We can ask about what we've heard. That gets us connected. In my community, when you eat together, when you've broken bread, you truly have now forged relationship. And that's one of the hardest things about COVID, is because we can't just eat together in the same room to create community. But those, you think about it, those meals, lunchrooms are the places we had conversations where we forged relationships. I've taken that a step further by saying the singing room, the songs that we choose to sing, the way that we sing gives us a chance to enter into conversation, which then also, on the other hand, allows us to engage in collaboration and collaborative creation. So a large part of my work and my framework and my philosophy is the intersection of how can we, and I'm going to stop sharing for a second, how can we honor musics of the past from all eras, composers, lands, put it side by side with music of today, and honestly, with integrity, create programs that engage people. So when people come to our concert, they don't know whether they're going to hear Orlando Di Lasso, Felix Mendelssohn, or a little bit of Common and John Legend, right? And it's not just throwing it together for the sake of throwing it together. There's some kind of thread there, a story that we're telling, a narrative, a journey that we're taking them on through the music that invites them to reflect and consider themselves in relationship to that story that they are experiencing. And for our singers, it gives us, again, that chance to engage in the conversation through the process of learning the music, refining the music, all the things that you expect choir to be, but taking it a step further, creating a space where they feel comfortable being able to share who they are. And I'll share a few clips as we go through the afternoon here of my singers talking about their experience in the youth choir in particular. Because what we've created is a space, what they call a family, and I call it a family too, but they said it first. It's a family environment where everyone belongs. You know, you hear these words now: diversity, equity, inclusion, access. You all have heard those buzzwords. Every university is talking about them, right? And there's no disrespect intended. Those words are important for us to think about what they mean, but it's what's under the surface of those words that's important, right? You know, diversity is talking about acknowledging the fact that we have differences. So once you acknowledge that, what are you going to do about it? Right? Equity is not equality. Equity is providing people with the supports they need to be successful in any situation. So my favorite phrase is to say, I practice equity by treating all of my singers differently. I treat them all differently with the same framework of expectations, but I have to be a little different because everyone needs something different at different times. And when you create an open community to talk about it, to say it's not going to be equal, it's going to be what you need, it can work. But it's about creating that space where people, here's the other buzzword, inclusion. And I always put it with a capital C, inclusion, because when you say race, access, inclusion, and equity, it makes it race there, the acronym of race. And race is at the heart of everything we do in America, no matter what we say. And again, think about it from the context of me telling you, for 30 years of my life, I saw sameness. Sunday morning, I go to my Black church. Monday through Saturday, 90% of the people I was around were not Black. Some Saturdays, I was in the Jewish synagogue singing with my friends there. So like around a lot of different people. So I want you to hear that coming from a Black man saying that race is at the heart of what we do. But for me, I see it even differently than some of my other Black peers in the room here today. Like we all have, no one Black person has the culture bearing experience of what Blackness is in America. And none of you have that for your culture either, right? And that's one of the things we have to get out of, is looking at someone as being the culture bearer and having all the answers. We can only bear our experience. And it's important that all of you feel comfortable being able to speak to your experiences, even when they differ from the experiences of others. Don't be shy about that. Don't back away from that, because it's having these tough conversations and engaging in discomfort where we all grow and we have the potential to make the world a little bit better there. So inclusion to me is belonging. Can I create a space where people feel like this is theirs? You know, when someone comes to your house and they're really at home, they kick their shoes off and they put their feet up on your table. You know, they don't ask, they just do it. And the question for my choirs is, when I ask myself, is do people feel like they can come in and just be who they are? Or do they have to put up a wall or a front to be in my choir to fit in? And my sincere desire is that they can be who they are, even if it drives me crazy. Like, you know, we all have tendencies that annoy each other, right? That's just a part of being real. And so I'd rather have singers who have little quirks that drive me crazy, but know that that's who they are, rather than have singers be in a room where everyone's putting on airs and living in a box, knowing that the minute they leave that room, they become a different person. And so it's seeking to find a way for them to bring all of themselves into that room. So I've said all I'm going to say for context now, John. I want to jump into these questions, and I'll provide more stuff here, I think, throughout the question time. And
Great.
then if new questions pop up, maybe we can put it in the chat, and John, you can, facilitate those and weave them in as well.
Okay, we have 10 questions. Everyone sent one, and just because yours wasn't chosen, it may have been the same as someone else's. So I just tried to weed out to get as much variety as possible. Miranda, will you ask your question, please?
Let me get to that real quick. I remember it, but I just wanted to make sure that I said because it had like multiple parts in it.
All right.
So basically what I said, I'm just going to say the whole thing. Do you think the vision of Essence Choir, when it was founded in 1969, is the same as it is today? And if yes or no, why? And then do you think that that has especially changed or become more profound over the past few months with everything that's been going on?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Miranda. And I'm going to share my screen with you all. I do think the vision in principle has stayed the same. So Philip Brunel, and I should probably show you a picture of him because you may encounter him. He's 70 plus years old now, but he could not outrun me. He could work me. He's just an amazing kind of individual, one of a kind individual. And so I'll show you the picture of the staff here just really quickly so you can see us. There's Philip right there in the center. He really is an international legend in the choral art form. And what Philip wanted to do when he started this organization out of his church was to find a way to sing music that was not being sung. In his mind, everyone was doing the top 10, the Messiah, Elijah, Brahms' Requiem. And he's like, that's great, but everyone does it. Can we sing things that people aren't singing? He's just a very inquisitive kind of guy. Put it like this. He's the only person that I know that can exist all day long on coffee. Like there are several days I'll say, have you eaten anything at all, Philip? Nope, I've had 6 cups of coffee. I'm like, dude, that you can't do that. But for him, he's just like not a human or something. It's a really cool kind of thing. So his mind works differently than most of our minds. So for him, he approached it for a guy who's in his 70s with a sense of real curiosity. And this was when he was 25, I believe. He called Aaron Copland and said, Aaron, Mr. Copland, rather, would you come and conduct a concert of your choral works? And Aaron Copland said, my choral music? No one ever asked me to do my choral music. Yes, when is the concert? I'll be there. And from that day forth, his motto has been, you don't know if you don't ask. And if you ask, you have a 50% chance of getting the answer you want to get. And if you don't get that answer, it's not your problem. Like that's how he lives his life. And so we've had like James Earl Jones, we perform with the Rolling Stones, all these kinds of things because of that mentality of living your life out there. So the reason I give you that context is a white man in his 70s, think about this back in 1969, he approached this from curiosity without the inhibition of wondering about, are people going to see me as appropriating culture or anything like that if my mostly, or at that time, all white choirs singing music from the Black tradition or whatever we're doing. So for him, it really was about the music and the composers. And so Miranda, to answer your question, I think that's still at the core today, except it's a little more refined now. So this is the next slide here I want you to see. These 6 points kind of guide a lot of what we do, particularly as it relates to engaging with communities of color. For these 50 plus years, we've celebrated culture through the music and the programs we've run. We've amplified voices by bringing amazing artists of color to the concert stage and paying them to sing with us in the best concert halls in the Midwest and around the world. We've commissioned so many composers of color and we hire artists of color. And then we've been developing programs that we hope will bring diverse audiences to the stage as well, and then providing access as well through programs like the Singers of This Age. I think the ways that it's changed the most is that we are a little more intimately aware of kind of our place. So this is the statement that we shared after the murder of George Floyd. And again, I say murder very intentionally, not to, because for me, it's not a political thing. It's very intentional, just thinking about how he died, right? And I would say this if he were for white or Mexican or anyone who died with their, under someone's knee like that. It did make us pause, like many organizations around the world, to really think about what have we done or what is our purpose? And so I was the primary writer, but several people pitched in with this. So I'm giving you time to read it here because we wanted to write something that could be really true to who we are as an organization and then put action behind it. Because anybody can take time to write a beautiful statement, but it's what's the action that you're gonna do to follow up that statement that's important. And so this is what we are in the process of living out now. the fact that we know that all of us have biases that define the way we see the world, black, white, and brown and beyond. We know that our choirs, as much as we've done, are not as diversified as we want them to be, other than our youth choir, which is, I'd say 70% people of color. And I could show you that graphic if you want to see it there. The rest of the choirs are about 85% white, 85 to 87% white. So we have work to do there. And to find ways to increase access to those who've been excluded, which means looking at the system of choral music that we work within. But we wanted to say that we do stand in solidarity, saying that we want singing together to be a way that we can help make this world safer, more equitable. And so that together we sing is our tagline. And so we say we're going to sing together to lift up voices, to fight for structural social change, particularly in choral music, to really fight some of the white European systemic structures that are there. Not to erase it, not to not do that music, right? But how can we level the playing field to make sure other voices are heard with the same level of, not just same level of excellence, but with that same level of anticipation of this being seen as the highest form of art music. To fight injustice, together we sing, and that together is what we stand by. So I hope that answers your question, Miranda.
Great. And we may have some follow-up on some of these, but kind of jot a few notes down. I just want to make sure we have time to get through the questions. Hannah, would you ask your question, please?
Yes. Hello.
Hi.
I was so moved by vocal lessons and all of the lives it's touched simply by just giving people access to music who wouldn't have otherwise had it. So my question is, do you have any advice or suggestions about how we as college students can begin reaching out to our own communities in a similar way?
Absolutely, Hannah. And I want to say, I think you said it the way that I would have said it if I were in my 20s. And so I'm going to give you just a moment here with no disrespect intended, because I've got 24 years in this work, right? I would have said the same thing. Your sentiment is in the right place, but you said by reaching out to other communities, right? When we use that language, words matter. Words are very important. When we say reaching out, what does that elicit in everyone's minds? Just pause for a second here. When I say I'm going to reach out, and I know there's a great song, reach out, I'll be there. It's a great song, right? So the words themselves aren't bad. Some of you didn't even blink. I am getting old. Like if you all don't know Diana Ross and the Supremes and that song, y'all need to go listen to that now. But anyway, when we say reach out, it's in a sense almost putting ourselves up and creating stratification. It's unintentional. That's not what Hannah meant at all, but I just want to point it out because I think what you can do, when I was your age, I thought it was by going out and doing service projects, right? And it was my mindset of, I have something to offer to you, so let me give you what I have to offer. Like that's totally coming from a sincere place, but that was my mindset. I've got the knowledge, I've got the know-how, so I'm gonna give it to you and you're gonna receive it and go, thank you very much. And in reality, what I've learned is that if we can approach it from how can we engage? And so that's your new word, Hannah. Can you all begin to engage with communities and with people? And when you use the word engage with them, that means we're entering this at the same level and we're gonna have a conversation. So my suggestion is just talk to people, particularly people in the greater Baton Rouge area. I know there's lots of challenges when you get off campus, things are different. I mean, y'all got the gators down there too. You never know when a gator is gonna jump out and come out. That was a joke. But wherever you feel comfortable going, I would say push your comfort zone just a little bit. Engage with a conversation. Just call someone up and say, hey, I wanna know more about your organization. I'm a music student at LSU and I'm interested in engaging with people in the community and getting to know how we may be able to work together, and just listen. And after you listen and they share their story and their mission, and maybe you share your story and your mission, you might find something that might work for you to do together. An open mind is the second thing to tie on to that. That open mind is that it may not go where you think it's going to go. So be willing to shift. And everyone's favorite word right now, actually, I hate this 5-letter word now, pivot. You know, everyone is thinking about pivoting in many ways, but have something in your mind of how you want to engage with the community, but be ready to let that shift to what they really need in that circumstance. And the third thing I would say is don't be afraid of an uncomfortable conversation or a negative response, because everyone is at a different place on this journey, particularly as it relates to our view of culture. And so if you go to a community of color, and I speak to you directly, Hannah, as someone who, from what I can see on Zoom, looks like mostly of European descent, if you go to a community of color to engage with them, they may not be receptive at first because they don't know your intentions. And that's okay. You just have to kind of let that be. You've put it out there, just go call someone else, you know? So that's my advice for you. Think about your language, think about what the people need, listen to them, not just learn from them, be ready to create the possibilities of what you can do together with them. And I'll add one final thing would be, don't be afraid to take a backseat role. You know, go in and shadow someone, work behind someone, and just kind of learn what's happening there. And eventually you'll be able to provide some shape and some structure into what you're creating together. Yeah, does that help?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Ike.
My question was, so I'll just read. Despite the broader understanding of coming together amidst tragedy, there still seems to be people who want to argue with and politicize responses to tragedies such as the murder of George Floyd. And how do you manage negative reactions to that kind of work?
Yeah. There are a couple things that come to mind. What I realize is, especially in terms of where we are right now, I didn't say this earlier, so let me say it now. Part of the reason I got you stretching and moving, yes, we've always done that in choir, right? But in these days, we're all in the midst of trauma. Every one of us has experienced 6 months of trauma that we don't think about. And our bodies are holding this trauma deep within us. And we have to find ways to release that and let that anxiety and that trauma go. And so when you have a health pandemic, and then you layer on top of it the resurgence of this racial pandemic that has been in the undercurrent of our country for so many years, right? Centuries, it hasn't gone away. And the relationships have always been fractured at best. Now it's at the forefront. We've created this place where people are wound up tighter than, yeah, I'm not gonna say it because I'm recording. You know what I mean? People are wound up really tight right now. And so what I've learned is we have to give people a lot of grace and a lot of space. And I'm really trying to practice that every day. Just last night, for example, I have a nearly 7-year-old, he's going to first grade. And so here they're trying to decide if it's gonna be hybrid or distance, and we get to choose. And so there's 4 elementary schools in our district, and they called a parent meeting on GoToMeets. Well, GoToMeeting has 250 cap. We get on there and people can't get in because they put all the schools into one meeting. And so we spent the first 30 minutes of our hour meeting, waiting for them to say, okay, if you go to this school, if your children goes to this school, would you please sign on to this new link? And would you sign on to this new link? And you know, someone finally asked the question, who made this decision? And instantly in the chat, everyone was like, give them a little grace, give them a little grace. We're all learning here, right? Because I was pissed off too. I was like, come on, you're wasting my time. But in my mind, I was going, I'm not gonna say that because it's a new time and I gotta give them a little grace. They know they screwed up. They're trying to fix it now. So let's give them some grace. So what I'd say, Mike, was it Mike? Is that right?
Ike.
Sorry, Ike. Yeah, Ike, what I would say is that the first thing I'm thinking of is giving people a little grace and trying to, if I'm engaging them especially, in a conversation, because I've encountered this a little bit, is to try to draw out of them a little more of what's at the core of what you're saying to me. Because I do believe most people, almost every person, feels that someone being killed under another person's knee is inhumane and should not happen, right? But what it gets clouded with is people's perceptions of Black Lives Mattering. And President Obama said it best. When you say the phrase Black Lives Matter, is not to say that other lives do not matter, that all lives do not matter, but it is to point out the particular vulnerability that this community is experiencing at this time. And I think that's where the root of the issue is that some people, because they haven't lived in that experience or lived close to that experience, they can't see the reality of the differences in the way people are treated just by the way they look, because they haven't experienced it. So in my deepest core, I'm angry about it. But in my public life, the way that I engage the world is I am trying to find ways to help them to engage with that reality that we are not all treated, not only equally, but with the equitable, with the supports that we need to be successful. So I structure the programs that we've been doing in this time to engage in conversations. For the last 159 days, I've been doing a daily live stream called Take 5 with GPS. GPS is my initials, so you can call me GPS if you want to. It's on YouTube and it's on Facebook every morning at 9 a.m. Central Time. So you're welcome to sing with me from 9 until 9:10. I usually read a poem. We do some inspiration. We're doing chair yoga right now. And then we warm up and then we sing a song. Today we sang Duke Ellington, Mood Indigo. But in the days after George Floyd, we sang protest songs. And then I did a whole set of Harry Burley's arrangements of Negro spirituals. And we didn't just sing them. I took the time to talk about the meaning and the history behind them and how they fit into our world today.
Philip, can I just ask Caleb to ask his question since you're on this thread? Caleb?
Okay, so for my question, I had asked that throughout history, one of the most universal music is to be kind of the voice of those who are unheard. And I had pointed out literally specifically, protest songs of the modern day. I think I mentioned Lil Baby and Clipping as modern hip hop artists making these anthems, but also the spirituals of the past. And I had to ask, what are some of your favorite songs of this message and of this,
Yeah, no, I know. Here we go. Everybody ready to sing? Get your hands going. Clap with me. Everybody on mute. Make sure you're muted for this part. Make sure you're muted, John. Yeah, Dr. Dixon, yeah. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let no hatred turn me around. Now I'm gonna teach you something now. How many of y'all heard that before? Raise your hands there. I see some hands going up. When we get to the turn me round, just harmonize at home. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. You just choose notes that feel good to you. And unless you've got someone there with you, I see a couple of you have two people there, you're not gonna hear anybody else's harmony. All right, those of you who have someone there with you, if they make a funny note, don't make a face. Just keep singing. Here we go. Ain't gonna let no hatred turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let no hatred turn me round. I'm gonna keep on marching, keep on talking, walking up to freedom land. That's one of my favorite ones. Here's another one that's really important right now. So this song started out in the church. Oh, come on, come on, come on. Don't you wanna go? Come on, come on, come on. Don't you wanna go? Come on, come on, come on. Don't you wanna go? Yes, I wanna go. And that's like the song your grandma would come in on Sunday morning and sing. It's like, it's time to go to church. Don't you wanna go? Okay, yes, I wanna go, right? You stayed up late Saturday night partying and now you gotta get up and put your church clothes on. At least that's how it was in my community. You put on your Sunday best, your tie, and all that stuff, right? That's another conversation for another day. We'll have to have that conversation in person. But what that song turned into during the civil rights movement, particularly with voters' rights, and it's very important today because all of you better be registered to vote. And if you aren't, you have another month and about 9 days to register to vote because we need all of your votes. Doesn't matter who you're voting for. I mean, it does in my head, but I'm not going to talk about that. You just got to vote because you can't give up your power. You can't give up your right? So the song now has turned into, and you can sing it with me, well, come on, come on, come on. Don't you want to vote? Come on, come on, come on. Don't you want to vote? Come on, come on, come on. Don't you want to vote? Yes, I want to vote. Well, come on, come on, come on. Did you cast your vote? Come on, come on, come on. Did you cast your vote? You get where I'm coming from, right? See, I love those songs that speak right to people's hearts. Very simple, but a very important message. So y'all can go around campus. See, that's something the a cappella choir could do, right? You all could put that together and each one of you could sing that on social media and then just put a note under it, hashtag LSU A Cappella Choir wants you to register to vote, and send it around campus and get the whole Baton Rouge community registered to vote, get people speaking up because our votes matter. Whether we think so or not, they matter. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention one that everybody's thinking about that we've heard so much before, most recently with John Legend and Common, right? Everybody know what I'm talking about? Yeah, Glory. Yeah, y'all could probably sing that one with me if I started singing that, especially the rap part. Hands to the heavens, no man's no weapon formed against, yes, glory is destined. Every day women and men become legends. Sins that go against our skins become blessings. That has become a protest song now in this modern era, following the movie, it came out with the movie Selma, and now it has really been something that has been sung quite often here in the Twin Cities. It's really interesting, the mixture of the old songs from the civil rights movement, We Shall Overcome, We'll Walk Hand in Hand, those songs being juxtaposed with some newer songs being infused into the rallies and the protests these days. There are a couple of my friends who've been called to sing at almost each rally in town. One of them is a gospel artist. So normally he sings gospel songs, but a lot of his songs have a universal message. And so people have called on him to kind of be the singer at these rallies. So I hope that answers that question, Caleb, give you a little bit of an insight there. We could go on for 2 hours with my favorite protest songs.
So I'm going to move along. I want to make sure we get the other questions. So Callie, will you ask yours, please?
Yes, hello. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, awesome. So, Mr. Phillip, I've seen that you've accomplished so much within your field and in music in general, and I think I speak for everyone when I say that it is truly inspiring what you've done in your community. And if you can give one piece of advice as to how you manage to balance so many goals at once, along with duties outside your career, like with your family, for example, what would it be?
Thank you for that question, Callie. I would say you have to know your core values. And in your age range there, between 18 to 30, maybe with some of the doctoral students, we're still defining, right? We're still shaping our core values at that range. So take some time, whether you journal or keep a notebook, and really write down the things that are important to you, because that's what you're going to draw on in times of crisis. There's different types of people in crisis. COVID, for instance. For me, I went to creativity, and I went to the mode of helping others get through the pandemics? Like, how can we as musicians engage and still make music and be choir? What do we have to do differently to still be relevant? Whereas other people really are paralyzed, right? And there's nothing wrong with those responses because we are wired a certain way. But when you know yourself and you have a sense of core values that are important to you, it allows you to determine what you're going to spend your time doing. So just as an example, I want to show you something here to help answer that question a little more here. So give me one moment here. This is one of those spots where I've got Zoom is a little clunky because I'm going from one PowerPoint to the other. But I think this will help you to contextualize this a little bit. So this is a short PowerPoint about what is choir during this time. And what I thought about it was, well, what I really care about when it comes to singing and music is the social emotional well-being of people. Like I talked about belonging, right? I want people to know that they belong, that they're cared for, that they're loved, and I want people to express their creativity. And so for me, that was, well, what can we do during this time? We can still show people that we care for each other. We can still laugh and cry together, and we can show up for each other. And when we do that, we have a place to connect and create. And that allows us to have this brave space, you probably heard that before, for conversation and for collaboration. And so part of the reason I want to share that with you is to say, these are some core values of mine as they relate to choirs. It used to be when I started, I think it was the performance, because I love what a performance feels like. I love that energy of a performance. I don't like the sweat because I'm a sweater. Dr. Dixon can tell you that. He's seen me sweat up a storm. But, you know, I love being on stage, that energy and that reaction from the crowd. And when your choir gets, you know, everybody's in the zone there, you know, amped up. But now that I've lived through this so much longer, it's the process. It's just the being together, making the music, talking about the music that really fuels me from day to day. In reality, after a concert, I'm exhausted. Like I am worn out, slap tired. After a rehearsal, I'm energized. I'm excited about thinking about what we're going to do next. And so when you know your core values, now take it out of choir, let's transfer it to life. When you know your core values, what's important to you in life, you begin to prioritize and make your schedule work for the things that are important to you. And you begin to learn something that I'm still not good at, but I do it some, when you say no, or when you say not now. And that's what I most often do, is say, I can't do this now, but I can do this then. And so I've become a master at just juggling. What can I do now? How much of this do I need to do so that it doesn't get so far behind, so that I can then do this, so that this is due it this day? Is it really due it this day, or can I push that back a day and talk to someone and ask for it to be due a day later? Like, you have to know yourself. And this is something else that I'm still learning, but I'm getting better at it. I own how I think and how I work, my workflow. And now it's my responsibility to communicate that to my partners, because I work in a lot of collaborative spaces where I may be the team leader, but I've got 3 or 4 or 6 people reporting to me, and they are expecting something from me to be able to get their work done. And so when you communicate clearly, hey, I can't meet that deadline, can we shift this so that this can happen? When you start having those conversations and you're open, then you can do the true multitask. And that's what multitasking is to me. It's that collaboration and conversation so you can move things around, just like we do on our screens on the computer. We have all these tabs open, right? And we move back and forth between the tabs very effectively. We can do that in our lives too. I think that's how I've been successful, Callie, because it's very messy. It is very messy. And on paper, I miss a lot of deadlines. But it's because I talk to people and I'm like, I'm working on this now, and this is the fire that needs to be put out now. I will get to your little water leak in a little bit here. Here, let me put a Band-Aid on that, and then I'll come back and fix it in 24 hours. So it's in college life, translation, you know that your school assignments have finite deadlines. Read that syllabus carefully. and determine and ascertain, because you know it's going to happen. You all experience this in high school too, because your high school experiences were much more stressful than mine. High school has become so much more stressful than it was in 1994, just dating myself there. When you see a professor or a teacher, you know what their expectations are and what leeway there is. And that's where I'm saying that communication of and making a decision, okay, for this is really important. So this has to be done. This is due at the same time. It's not as important. Can I work out early enough to get them both done to be turned in on time? How can I prioritize? Or am I going to have to give my B game to something and just turn it in and just bring my B game, and that's okay today? Or my C+ game? Or is something going to have to be late? And if it has to be late, what's the consequence? And am I okay accepting the consequence? Like, I think that's a part of the reality of life that no one told me explicitly. I figured it out. And so I'm just telling it to you, even though you may have been thinking about it. Start having those conversations with yourself intentionally, and it will make your life a lot less stressful, because you won't get so tied up going, you'll prioritize, and you'll live with the choices that you make and accept the consequences that come from it. Yeah, does that help?
Yes, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. You're muted still, John. Sorry, Dr. Dixon.
Benjamin, will you ask your question?
Yes, hello. So my question was, when you're trying to communicate a controversial message, what things do you do to make sure no choir members are singing something that they disagree with?
Yeah, great question, Benjamin. Great question. Because that's one of the hardest things that we do in choir. And think about it, for years, we've been singing overtly Christian messages in choirs with singers who come from different religious and faith perspectives. And we've just been doing it like it's, eating ice cream on a sunny summer day. No one's thought about it for years, and we've just made it the norm. And that's really a problem. And I'm a Christian, so I commit to that, because I'm like, hey, I'm okay singing these songs anytime. It doesn't matter to me, but it does matter to others. So coming back to the conversation, I kind of said it a little bit here. If you've created that space where people do feel comfortable, and you structure your rehearsal process in a way that, whether it's in rehearsal time or outside of rehearsal time, through online chats, through email threads, through video posting or whatever, right? A way for people to say what's on their mind and engage in conversation. You can begin to parse out when people are uncomfortable with something, and you can live into that conversation and lean into that conversation. There's a few things that I like to carry with me, and it's on another PowerPoint, so I'm not going to pull it up. I'm just going to say it with you. These are principles that help in times of conflict. Two things can be true at the same time. Just wrap your head around that for a moment. I ask people can you believe that two things can be true at the same time? Can you lean into discomfort? Right? Can you lean into discomfort? So the two things can be true is my experience of this is true to me, and your experience of this is true to you. There's probably somewhere in the middle that reality exists, but we have to accept those ways that we see it and contextualize it. Can we speak to be understood and listen to understand, rather than speaking to persuade? So in conversations in choirs, if we can set up these parameters where people see that this is what I mean by a brave space, where it's not a debate, it's not that. Even though I love a good debate, it's not that we're trying to debate, we're just trying to hear each other. And once people feel that it really is a space where they can say what's on their mind, then we can start to hear things. Andre Thomas, many of you know that name. You've sung a spiritual or two by Andre Thomas, probably, if you've been in this choral thing for a while. He was at Florida State for many years, retired now, and is at Yale in his retirement. And it's going to be our president of the Choral Directors Association. He was doing a concert with us just this last November, actually. And it was a set of his arrangements, I think all of his arrangements for the most part in the first half. One of the songs that we were singing was called Going Up to Glory. And the song begins like this. Sun up to sundown, picking that cotton. Huh! Sun up to sundown, work for the master. Huh! Sun up to sundown, chains and shackles. No more auction block for me. No more auction block for me. I see some of your faces. Yeah, I see some of your face. Julie, and I'm looking at you especially, Julie, and I see your face, right? Now, as black men, people, and Julie, I'm guessing here, so tell me if I'm wrong. Give me a nod or not. African descent, right? You know, we can sing that, and we have our way of identifying with that, right? But when you've got a choir of 120 white adults, you've got a conversation to have. And the conversation was very, we went on for several weeks. It helped that I'm a black man leading the choir. I'm not gonna lie. That helps that I helped to open the conversation to make it a safe space. But even me being a black man saying that this is something that I think we can sing and hear the ways that I can see us singing it didn't make it comfortable for everybody in the choir. We broke into, we had conversations in a large group. Like I shared historical context for it. And what I should tell you is that in fairness, the reason for the song is it changes on to going up to glory, going up to meet my Lord, I'm going up. So there's a turn, like in most of the Negro spirituals, you start with what you're experiencing so that you can see the future. And that future is a duality, right? It's freedom on earth and it's freedom in the celestial sense. And we know that these enslaved Africans adopted practices that were given to them. And I'm not going to go too far in this history lesson, don't worry. They adopted these practices that were different than the ones they brought over from the continent of Africa. But what they took solace in were the fact that these Old Testament stories of Joshua and Elijah and Moses, those were liberation stories. And our ancestors were smart. They were like, ooh, wee, I like that. That liberation story, we're going to put that in the song. We're going to take that, and that's going to be what's going to get us through the day, right? That's kind of how they resonated with Christianity, was through those liberation stories. So this going up to glory, we went through this in the large group. That wasn't enough. We broke into sectionals where I wasn't even there, and I had the section leaders facilitate conversations and questions, and that helped some. And then Dr. Thomas showed up and had a little bit of conversation, and that helped some. I'm sure when we got to that concert, there were still some singers who were still a little tentative, but they sang it. Not one person stepped out because they at least understood that since we have engaged in this conversation and we have told our audience why we're singing this entire program of music from the African-American tradition, why this fits in, and we've said that in the concert to the audience and we've addressed it, we made that commitment. People were like, okay, I'm with you. We can continue the conversation later, but let's go for it here, right? So Benjamin, I say that to say I don't try to change people's minds anymore. I would say early on I did. I had a person tell me they wouldn't sing an Ave Maria, and I went round and round about, why can't you sing Ave Maria? I'll never forget that one. And finally, I just said, you know, I'm okay if you don't sing this, if you just step out on this one, but we're gonna sing it. You know, it was one of those in the end. And so I am open to people saying, I'm not comfortable singing that if it's the right reason. But and that was 10 years ago. I've not had that happen since, because I think my approach is very different now. I'm not trying to change minds. I'm trying to open doors to understanding and conversations so that people at least have context for why we're doing what we're doing and can see the value of doing it and are willing to go through it so they can see what's on the other side. Yeah, I'll leave that there. Great question, though.
Right. Philip, we have about 20 minutes and we have about four questions. Adam Schulte, you want to ask yours?
Alrighty. This one was just a general wonderment about how you think the George Floyd case is going to end. Like, considering the fact that George Floyd had a lethal dose of fentanyl in his system and the original autopsy showed that George Floyd did not die of asphyxiation, and the additional police footage showed things differently than the original narrative, do you think the police officers are going to get acquitted for that, or how do you think that's going to end up?
Yeah, I appreciate your question, Adam. Um, yeah, that's an interesting one. And it's not a popular question, right? So I really appreciate you having the courage to share that question there. What I would say here is that the climate here in the Twin Cities is it's much more diverse than people would think, first of all. There's lots of communities of color here, and there is a very strong and engaged community of African descent, both African Americans, those born in America, and then those who are from Liberia and the Caribbean and other parts of the world. Those populations, or our populations, are really motivated and active right now and very vocal right now. Also, here in the Twin Cities proper, there's a great number of people that I would call, you've heard the term allyship, right? Everyone knows what being an ally is. The next level to allyship is being an accomplice. And that's what I ask you all to be, are accomplices. You know, if you're an accomplice to something, think about it in the legal terms. That means you were in the action. Allies mean that, yeah, this is important to me. I'm going to stand behind you. I'm going to listen and learn. You know, I love that phrase, but I'm a little over that phrase. Listen and learn, right? Accomplice means I'm going to take action. I'm going to walk side by side with you. I'm going to put my body on the line for you like you would put your body on the line for me. I think there's so many accomplices here in the Twin Cities, those who are white or of European descent, that it would be very unlikely to see a jury here in the Twin Cities acquit all four of them. I think it would be very unlikely. And I'm speaking not my personal, like what I think should happen. So I'm trying to take this very much from what I see in the community. So I want to state that to everyone. If you call me on the phone, I'll tell you personally what I think, my personal opinion about it. I think the other thing is that we have to consider, you see that footage. Everyone put one of your family members under that knee. Just take a moment and put your grandmother under that knee. Put your mom, put your dad, put your puppy under that knee for 9 minutes. It's uncomfortable, right? I think that's where the problem is. And I do think that's where people are coming down on, no matter what was in his system, the act itself was so inhumane, and the other officers could have intervened more strongly. That's why I just find it hard to believe that an acquittal is going to happen for all four of them, particularly Derek Chauvin. I just find it very hard to see a path forward. And what I would dare say, if he were acquitted, it would be a really, really, really difficult community to live in right now, because then there's a lot of people who will feel that the system is completely broken, and the only thing to do is to not just protest. Then we're going to get into the looting and the rioting. And we know that most of the looters and the rioters were not from the Black communities, right? But I do think that if you saw the last week, we had something happen here, an incident happened here again, and it was someone, a homicide suspect, who actually took his own life. But the word came out at first that it was a police involved shooting, and people really went to town on the town again. So it's very tense right now. Crime is up here, and it's because there's not a sense of trust with the police department. And that's not just Black people here. There's a significant part of the population that just doesn't trust. And let me be very clear, it's the Minneapolis Police Department, because there's a long, long history, if you do some reading, about the racism that has been a part of that system for a while. So I hope that helps to answer the question, Adam.
Yeah. Do you think maybe assault might be like an easier one to get him on, because like just the lack of evidence that he died from physical asphyxiation?
there's no question that would happen, right? I come back to, again, though, I think if it's not murder, for Derek Chauvin in particular, if it's not murder, I think people are going to be really, really concerned. The other thing I'd say, Adam, and then I'll let it go. There's some concern about that autopsy, the official autopsy also, and about whether that is a part of the systemic problem we have here, where they change that autopsy results to benefit the police department. And that's been a conversation that they're trying to unpack here also. It's going to be interesting. St. Paul, so it's Twin Cities. St. Paul is on one side of the river, Minneapolis on the other side. St. Paul has a black mayor, Melvin Carter, who grew up in St. Paul. He's a young gentleman, 40s. And Minneapolis, you've seen this mayor, Jacob Fry, a young gentleman who moved here from another community in his 30s. So you've got two young men who are kind of leading these communities, and this is their chance to really move us in a new direction. Yeah, thank you for that.
Philip, let's 3 more questions. Luke, will you ask yours, please?
Hey, I feel like you've kind of answered this throughout the talk, but what aspects of teaching fuels and inspires you to continue teaching?
Yeah, people. Like, I tell my wife, I don't like people, but I do like people. Like, I'm an introvert. You know what I mean? It's kind of a paradox, right? I'm an introvert. Like, I gain my strength by being alone. I think the thing my wife dislikes about me the most, besides the fact that I'm incredibly too busy, is that she'll say, how are you doing? And I'm like, fine. I do the one word thing, and I have to realize, okay, I owe her more than that. I should probably give her a little more information than that. How was your day? Okay. That's me. So what fuels me, though, when I get in a classroom or when I get in front of a choir, just seeing those faces, whether they're professionals or volunteers or kids, it doesn't matter who. It's just like, how can we make something magical happen together? And it's the same thing when I'm doing community work or speaking. Like, I can see from you all here, like, I just really want to come and meet you guys now. Like, I just feel the energy, even through the internet, that this is a powerhouse group, and there's a lot of creativity and potential that's already being used for good. So that's what keeps me going. I also think possibilities. The fact that there's so many possibilities when you start something. So each year, like, I try not to limit the possibilities by what's the choir going to sound like in my head, or who's going to do this solo or that. It's like everybody has a chance to do everything. And let's open the possibilities and see where we go. So there's structure, but then I like to leave a lot of room for spontaneity in that as well. And the other thing, final thing I'll say, is it keeps me young. It just keeps me active. Because, otherwise, being an introvert, I would sit around and watch reruns of shows from, like, The Good Wife from 1995 or whatever, and, get fat and happy eating donuts and pizza or whatever. So it keeps me young and active and going there. Thanks for that question.
Great, thanks. Alan Boudreau.
Hi there, Mr. Schultz. I've been really, enjoying having you here so far. I really respect a lot of what you're doing in the community outreach and all that kind of thing. I noticed that a lot of your work, at least that's on, like, the front page of your website, is the more contemporary and even, like, original compositions that you do with your vocal lessons group, which I think is really amazing. But I was curious on something that you've touched on earlier. How do you work to incorporate the older choral traditions into this kind of modern, socially progressive program?
Absolutely. And that was the one thing that I ran out of time to pull up a couple of clips. But if you just go to our YouTube channel and just play back some of the recordings, you'll see we do a lot of, even though he's a living composer, John Rutter is a dear friend. Dr. Dixon, I think you know John too, don't you? I'm sure you do. Yeah. Of course
Yeah, I
you
do.
Yeah. So, working John's music and things from that, we literally do music from all eras and all traditions. So we had Simon Halsey with us a few years ago to do the British Invasion, great music of the British cathedrals. I love that Anglican. Again, this is why I hang with Dr. Dixon, because he has me singing all this Stanford and Howells and, the Anglican cathedral pieces, as we say, Howells, these amazing works of art that make my soul sing. Part of the reason I came to the University of Minnesota is my mentor here, Kathy Romy, was a partner with Helmut Rilling, and she prepared all of his choirs. If you know that name, Helmut Rilling is the preeminent Bach specialist in the world. He's up in his 80s now and isn't doing as well, but up until like a year ago, he was still conducting regularly. And so I've had 3 occasions to go and help prepare choirs and sing with Helmut Rilling in Germany. Bach. I mean, Bach is my personal love language. That gets me going. So I incorporate that in what we do. And Philip Brunel has done that through the years too, with that focus on the obscure pieces. You know, the composers that we either don't know or the pieces from the composers that don't know. So our last concert of last season, the one that succumbed to COVID, was a Mendelssohn concert, and it was called The Mendelssohns. And it was going to be Felix and Fanny. And so we had several choral pieces of Fanny Mendelssohn that people didn't know about, including her cantata, her Job cantata or Job cantata. And then we were going to sing the Lobgesang of Felix, which was basically what I call the first choral symphony. Dr. Dixon may agree or disagree, but I've written a couple of papers saying that that was the reason that Beethoven did Symphony Number 9. So I have some strong feelings on that one. So again, you kind of get the principle of it's through that lens of bringing out, unearthing masterpieces. Another thing that we've done through the Witness program, there's actually a series of 4 CDs, and now I'm progressing this work as well, of the music of Black composers that people don't know also outside of the spiritual and gospel tradition. So looking at jazz, but also looking at my friend Marcus Garrett, Dr. Marcus Garrett, who's at Nebraska Lincoln, calls it non-idiomatic music of Black composers. So people like Adolphus Hailstork and Ulysses Kay and George Walker and Rosephine Powell. You've heard that name. She has some pieces that fit this bill too. Stuff that kind of has that European training and sound, but it's uniquely Black at the same time. So yeah, we definitely do it and infuse it into the message.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Did you say me?
I did.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't hear. Hello.
Hello.
You have already touched on this a little bit, so feel free to go into more detail if you see fit. But my question is, how have you created such a strong foundation of community in your choirs, and how can we continue to do that virtually?
Yeah, I think what you're doing right here, right now. And yeah, how much time do we have? 5 minutes? Okay. We don't have time to do it. I encourage you to be creative here on this virtual platform, this Zoom platform. I often say that we're very real people engaging in this distance platform. So I don't use the word virtual much to try to remind us that we're real. So I use breakout rooms and give my singers challenges. So like the one I want you to try at your next session is break off into small groups and think of a song that easily lends itself to phrases. And then take turns singing each phrase of that song, stringing it together so that it works. So for instance, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Next person, merrily, 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 life is but a dream. So I send them to the breakout rooms and do little challenges like that. But while they're there, I ask them to check in with each other. What's your highs today? What's your low today? What's something you need us to know about where you are today to help us engage with you? It's questions like that when we check into a rehearsal, and I believe every rehearsal needs to check in, even with adults. I do it differently with a choir, an audition choir like this than I would with a youth choir, but finding a way to check in with people and allowing people to have voice in the room is a way to build community and to maintain connection, especially in these times. And now that it's okay to get together physically distanced with your mask on, you know, set up some times by section and small groups and just go do some getting to know you sessions outside. Sit around over a glass of, you know, something that you can drink that's legal for you to drink and have conversation, just get to know each other a little bit, because that's going to make this better.
Philip, tell us what you just did on the rooftop recording with Minneapolis with.
Yeah. So with Soda, we're part of a program called the Facing Race Awards, which they used to do in person, which they honor people in the Twin Cities who have done good work around racial relations and racial equity. And so they asked my youth choir if we could sing. And I was like, of course we can, but here's the caveats. It has to be outside. We have to be masked. We have to be physically distanced. And this was Twin Cities Public Television, so PBS, basically. And so they found a rooftop in St. Paul, this events center there. And there's a picture on our Instagram page, our Insta page. Our Insta is VE Soda. I'm just going to put it here in the chat. You can just go to VE Soda. And if we have time, I'll find it and put the link to the picture in there. But yeah, so 21 of my kids are up there with their mask on and our hoodies, because we have hoodies that they personalize with their own hashtag about the thing that's important to them. And it was a part of our Humanize My Hoodie movement to say that anybody should be able to wear anything that they want to wear without being perceived a certain way, and sang. It was really cool. And they had all these microphones so that they could actually get good sound. I can't wait to hear it, because what I heard live in the moment as I was playing the keyboard was a lot of hot air and a lot of cars, but they've assured me that it was really good.
Well, this is not a question to answer, but for you and for all of us, really, how do we reconsider ourselves as artists during this time? What is going to be different about our art form? And how are we going to engage in the future of choral music through repertoire choices, through tonal varieties of sounds that we have not explored, through so many other ways? But there's no question that, like everything else in our culture right now, we will be different people on the other side of this COVID experience, both as individuals as well as professionals, and it will affect our careers and the way we interpret and use our music as artists. So looking forward to seeing where all of that goes. Guys, I'm sure Philip wouldn't mind if there's follow-up today. Is there a way they can go on your blog or something if they want to do a follow-up response or question?
Yep, there's one of my email addresses, so I'll give you my work one. Just feel free to shoot me a message. Yeah. Anytime. I won't put my cell phone in there. I usually give people my cell phone, but I won't give you that. You can also go, like I said, go to the Instagram page. You can look me up on Facebook too, if you still do the Facebook thing. But happy to get with you there. And if we do connect some, I'm not opposed to a phone call. So, if we start talking and you want to, catch up some more, we can set up a Zoom or whatever. Would love to just stay in touch with you and see what you're doing. And thank you for this time together today. And Dr. Dixon, what you just said there, I think is important, that we all have to be open to the fact that choral music is more relevant now than ever before. And if we let it, it has the chance to be transformative and not transactional. Transactional, people come to a concert, they appreciate it, they smile, they clap, they go home. Transformative could be that we leave them with a message and an action item and something to do. And then perhaps we leave the concert and we go do that thing or do a thing together. So we have the ability to choose music to shape what we do with it. So be bold.
Great. Listen, we are so grateful, guys. Give Phillip Shoultz a hand. We're really grateful for the time you've taken with us to share, and really proud of what you're doing in the Twin Cities area. And I'll look forward to chatting with you some later. As he said, guys, I need a little bit of patience and understanding too. This technology